Hey everyone, welcome to Our Small Footprint. My name is Nyssa. If you're new here, we are a large family living off-grid in Australia. I don't know how well I finished yesterday's video, but it was Sunday and normally I churn over to the new video on a Monday because otherwise I end up with 2-hour videos like last time. So we're just going to start fresh today, and hopefully I had enough photos and stuff to scatter at the end of yesterday's video if I didn't finish it quite well. We all know that a lot of my videos finish abruptly. Anyway, Monday morning, kids have class shortly. The bananas are ripe, so I sent them off to have bananas for breakfast, and now I'm going to make some breakfast. So I'm going to make some egg bites. I bought some cottage cheese purposely to do it, one of the best uses of cottage cheese there is. And so I'm going to make some egg bites up. And I was thinking it's chilly today. The weather is on a bit of a change over the next week. We've got a -4 forecast for Thursday, which is unfortunate because that's when I'm getting up at 6:30 in the morning to get ready for work. And it'll be colder than that here because it always is. So it's actually one of those rare days where it's colder outside than it is inside. Normally inside is quite cool still at this time of day, and out here is warm because you've got sunlight. But there's not much in the way of sunlight, so it's pretty chilly. So maybe we'll do that loaded potato soup that I was going to do for dinner tonight. In doing that, though, we're going to need some bread, and my starter peaked, and I decided not to do anything with it last night, so it's dropped a little bit. But it's fine. It just means that I'm going to pull my proving box out, and I might add a few grams of yeast as well, and we'll just get some rough artisan style bread going for having with soup tonight. The sandwich bread that I did yesterday was perfect. I was super happy with that, so that's going to continue to be something that I will do, and using those tins on top of each other will work perfectly for the new oven. So I'll go more into that another time because I know I sort of skimmed over doing that because I wasn't sure how it was working or anything else, but my starter worked perfectly. It was fully sourdough. The texture of it was perfect for a sandwich on the same day, and it will be perfect as toasted sandwiches after that. So in regards to the egg bites, I froze that caramelized onion from yesterday already, so I'm just going to warm this up so that it is split upable between the different egg cups. I have my pre-cooked bacon pieces. I've got fresh tomatoes here, so I'm going to dice up some fresh tomatoes. I don't have any greens. I've got some pak choy. I wonder if that would work all right. Probably would, and I haven't got any more crispy noodles, so I don't have any plans for it, so I might slice that up as well. Maybe I'll wilt it all off. Maybe I'll heat the bacon, the onion, and the pak choy all up and wilt it all off to put in the bottom, and I'll grate some cheese, and we'll do about, say, 24 eggs to about 3 cups of cottage cheese. We'll see how much. I'll see how much. I think the packets are only 2 cups, so maybe we'll just use a container of cottage cheese with about the 2 dozen eggs. That ratio should be fine. And I'll probably use the silicone rectangular things just because it's simpler than using the other ones, but we'll pull it all together anyway. I do have broccoli that I could use, but it probably won't go soft enough in the time of the cooking, and the kids would be a bit funny about that. It wouldn't worry me or Darryl, but the kids might be. So I think this will work because I can just wilt this quickly while I'm warming up the onion. I've slightly changed my mind on, I was going to do 24 eggs and I was going to do egg bites and stuff, but do you know what? If I only do 16 odd and I do the cottage cheese, which would be much the same as using the milk, I reckon I can make it as like the frittata thing. I've got the Thermomix, so I'm putting enough air in it. And then that way I can do it in the pie dishes rather than having to worry about the egg bite things. Just because I really don't want to do the individual egg bites. So I grated some cheese, cut some tomato, everything else is ready. I just need the pie dishes and to blend this. With some, I'll put some salt and pepper. Probably no salt actually, just a bit of pepper, maybe a little bit of garlic powder. Alright, so all I did was I split all that greens, bacon, onion mix in the bottom, poured the cream cheese, the cottage cheese egg mixture evenly over the top, added the grated cheese, diced tomato, and we're just going to throw these in the oven. They take about half an hour at about 180. It just depends on how full you make your dishes and how many add-ins you've got in them. So you just want to make them till they're mostly set in the middle, slightly jiggly in the middle, but mostly set. Alright, let's mix up a really quick sort of a discard double batch artisan type loaf. We'll just see how we go. We'll put it in the proofing box and if need be, and we'll just make it work. So I had about 720 of warm water, about 20 grams of salt. I'm going to use whatever starter I've got here and then feed it. So got about 250 grams of starter there. Now, even though the starter has lifted and fallen and it's classed as discard, it still does its thing to a degree, but it is very chilly today. So I'm going to add some yeast to this one as well. Just say 10 grams of yeast to that. I might add just a pinch of sugar. That was 10 grams of sugar just to help with that process, because we want to make sure that it's done today. And I don't want to be doing too much with it because I'm going to try and make the soup and everything. And then we're going to add about the 900 odd grams of flour and we'll have a look at the consistency. Right, next task while we are waiting for the breakfast to cook. I need to strain this scrap syrup. I need my Pyrex jug. And all we're going to do is strain all this liquid out. Now you can puree up the solids and squeeze them as well. Your liquid does end up quite cloudy. That's a personal preference whether you're happy to do that or not. Because the more you push the pulp and stuff through, the more texture you're going to get to your liquid. So, I got about the 4 litre, 4 quart mark and I poured it into a pot. I'm going to puree up this jug of leftovers and pour it through here, and just out of curiosity to see what I get, whether it's worth the effort of doing or not. So that was a jug full for about 10 seconds and we've got this broken up pulp, but I don't know what we'll get through it as to whether it's, because I don't really want to push too much of the pulp through either. This is an empty container. I purposely emptied all the other liquid out so that we could test this out, because I don't want to push too much pulp through either. And is it worth the effort to get a bit more liquid? No, we're just basically getting pureed pear through there with not much liquid, so I'm not going to bother doing that. I'm just going to stick with what I was doing. It's not like I haven't got plenty out of this, and this is only the cores anyway, so the animals will get to eat this. If I was going to hang it, it'd be different. I could totally hang it somewhere, and it would drip and we'd get plenty out of it, but I don't have anywhere that's free from bugs or a big enough cheesecloth or anything like that to do that. So I'm not going to. So I'm just going to keep going. I'll leave that little bit of pear in there is fine. But I'm just going to keep on putting it through and just put it in a big container for the chickens to have as scraps. So there's about another litre. So we ended up with about 4.5 to 5 litres of liquid, which is plenty, as I said, from what equates to a scrap item. Because we also got the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16 jars of pears too. So pretty happy with that sort of ratio of things. So now I just have to decide what I'm going to do with that pear syrup. I've pulled one frittata out, but the other one's not quite done. I think I filled one a little bit more than the other one. So I'm just going to do some prep for this pear jelly. So I'm going to use low methyl ester pectin, which means that it doesn't have to have much sugar in it. If I can open. So what you use is a calcium water to help. So it is monocalcium phosphate monohydrate for use with low methyl ester pectin, and that helps the pectin to set. So what you do is you mix up your calcium water, which is 1 teaspoon of calcium powder to 250 mils of water, and you can leave this in the fridge. So you can use this multiple times. So I put it in a mason jar and I'll put a reusable lid on the top for that. And the ratios that you use it, I always have to double check. I bought mine from Green Living. You can buy the Pomona's brand in America mostly. Doesn't have the instructions on here. I will look it up. But you use a certain amount of this calcium water with a certain amount of pectin, and you can use like 1/4 of the sugar that's needed and still get to a gel. And it means you don't have to get it to a gel. So you don't have to heat it to a gel. You basically just mix it all up, sort it all out, pour it in, and it'll work. So I'm going to do that pear. I might add some vanilla bean paste right at the end so that it still maintains that vanilla bean flavour. And then it'll have the little black flecks through it. So that's the plan at the moment. But we're going to do breakfast first. I think the other one is ready to come out. So yeah, we've still got a little bit of a wobble in the middle, which is what we want, because it will continue to cook and collapse like this one has as it cools. So yeah, these frittatas are breakfast or brunch. The kids have already had fruit and stuff to use up more eggs. I'm trying to figure out the best order of things to do. So the big pot that I had the syrup in, I need to make the soup in. So I've poured the syrup into, now there's no sugar, this is just the juice basically, into some jars, because realistically when you're making jam you should only do 4-cup measures. Sometimes it doesn't set. Otherwise I probably will still do an 8-cup measure, just do a half-gallon jar at a time and then the other 2 sort of thing. And cross my fingers that I managed to get the ratios right, because otherwise that's 5 lots of jam. It doesn't take very long when using the low methyl ester pectin, but still, we'll see how we go. So I've done that. I've got my calcium water sorted. I've got my pectin sitting there ready to go. What I was thinking though is that I want to do loaded potato soup, which has caramelized onions and bacon in it. I'm not going to use the stuff I've already done because that seems pointless when it's only 10:30 in the morning and I'm making soup anyway. So this can be the base for the pan, and all the flavour in the bottom will be good for the soup. So I need to slice them up, but this bread dough, the water I used was pretty warm, so it's already done what it needs to do. So I need to decide how I want to cook this. Do I want to put it in loaf pans, which is never quite as nice when you have soup having the slices, but easy to do. Like, it's just nice and convenient. So I think that's probably how I'll go. So all I'm going to do, it's a very slack dough. All I'm going to do is, what do I want to do with it? Do I want to quickly put it in the fridge for a little bit? Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll quickly shape it into my 2 bannetons and stick it in the fridge briefly, and then I'll stick it in the bread tins in a couple of hours, because I don't really want to bake it right now. So it's a fairly wet dough, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some flour down and then tip it out. Now this is 2 loaves worth, so like I normally do with a wet dough, and then use my scraper, and we will bring the less sticky side to the top just to make it easier to work with, like that. We don't want to introduce too much flour because we do want it to be a fairly wet dough because that gives us the best results. Alright, so I'll split it roughly in half, and then all I'm going to do, grab my banneton and my cloth, grab a little bit of semolina, sprinkle on my cloth. Now I don't want to knock too much air out of this one, so I'm going to be fairly gentle with it. I'm just going to do that, spin at 90 degrees or whatever needs, and basically just do the clam fold like that. Place it in, and then once it's in there, pinch all the joins together, knit it a little bit if need be, like that, so that we've got all the ends and joins done, like that. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit of semolina on top because it's pretty sticky and I don't want the cloth to stick to it. And then I'll throw this in the fridge, nice cold part of the fridge, for an hour or two, just so that I can bake it on my timeline rather than straight away. So I didn't even stick this in the proofing box. Obviously the water I used was just a little bit warm. Just like that. And then we'll just clam fold it like that in place. Now this definitely does not have much in the way of any sort of structure or tension. It'll be a very rustic loaf, but that was the point, was just to have something to have with soup tonight, using up that discard because I hadn't used it. So there we go, those two will go in the fridge. Bread is now done for the moment, put aside, on to the next task. So I pulled the last 2 kilo bag of bacon bits out of the fridge that I had left. So I've cooked every other bag. I just had one raw bag left. I've just put, I've got some raw stuff. I just didn't want to cook it all just in case I want some raw stuff for some sort of purpose. I don't know what, but just in case. So I shouldn't really need it because I've got the actual middle bacon and everything else. But anyway, this can always be cooked up at a later date in a smaller batch for whatever purpose. So I've got 4 2-cup or 300 gram-ish bags of just the raw bacon bits, and the rest of it is in a pot. And I'm going to use the meat breaker upper like I did last time to break it up into some smaller pieces, cook it off well. Then I'm going to add half a dozen of onions to it, and then we're going to go from there. So the loaded potato soup that I make, I regularly make it raw, like raw packed in jars. I don't cook it first because it's just easier to raw pack jars. And I just don't have the capacity at the moment to get enough jars cleaned and get this to work. But I have those potatoes that were a seconds bag, so they've already got a few bad spots in it, and I really love loaded potato soup. So we may just need to freeze some of this. Some of it can go up to Mum. She can reheat it for lunches. I can take some to work for lunches, and plan on doing it again at some point. Maybe during the school holidays. Maybe I need to try and make it so that the next shopping trip is done the week before the school holidays, so that I have the whole of the school holidays to get some stuff done, because the 2-day break in the middle, it just makes things a little bit challenging. But I also just realized that I have to finish the chicken that's still in the fridge too. There's a couple of trays of chicken in the bottom of the fridge whose date is tomorrow or the next day or something. So I either need to vacuum seal and freeze that raw, though I've left it a bit late, and generally speaking I don't like to vacuum seal and freeze raw when it's that close to date, though I could do some more up for sous videing, because that way if I'm vacuum sealing it raw, it's being cooked from frozen, So that might be an idea, because I don't really want to cook it all up. I've got too much else going on today, and we just don't need it cooked up at the moment. So that's what I think I'll do actually. I'm going to have a think about some marinades, because I really want to test out the sous vide. We've got some power to different spots in the kitchen now. I haven't given you a full rundown yet, but we're getting there with getting everything laid out. I ordered some cabinets, some cupboards from Kita. They're the plastic ones, because I thought that that would be good for my outdoor kitchen. They're outdoor, you know, storage cabinets. The base ones turned up, and they're what the bench behind in front of me is sitting on, but the tall ones were on pre-order, so they are due next month. So for the moment we're still just a little bit space challenged on what we had planned, because those cupboards were going to go in behind me as well, and I was going to be able to use them for some of my crockery and bowls and all that sort of stuff. But we're still not quite there yet, so we're still figuring out where everything needs to go in the interim, and still working out what needs to be discarded. So the plan is, like I said, every time I make muffins, my muffin tins are disgusting. I'm going to replace them, but I prefer to wait until I've got an enclosed cupboard to replace them, and then that way they've got somewhere protected to be stored. I've got a whole bunch of 3D prints bookmarked for making hangers and storage accessories and stuff for in the kitchen too. So I'm working through those, as well as the garden prints. I'm just about to get all my seeds going for spring, in the hopes that we can get this chicken pen done and then the garden space sorted, so that I can have a small garden this year. We have been looking at getting a boar. We weren't going to look at it. We weren't going to look at spending that kind of money. But the problem is that if I want to be able to garden, and I need Darryl to be doing project work, not running backwards and forwards with water, we can pay to have water carted in, but I could also borrow some money and get a bore in and be paying the same amount on a weekly basis as I would be for getting water in, but have unlimited water. So that's the thought pattern at the moment. But it is a bit of an outlay, but it's an outlay towards the rest of my future, is how I kind of look at it. Like, having a bore on the property would be beneficial for the rest of my existence out here. So we got a quote on that one recently. He hasn't been out to have a look, but we got a quote based on the depth that they had to go in the areas around us, and the average is about 90 metres, and it's 260 plus GST per metre, so we're looking at about the 25 grand mark, which is what I had thought it would be. So I just have to decide whether I want to do that or not. All right, so I've been doing a bunch of bits and pieces while I've been doing everything else. And so the onions and the bacon are all caramelized and cooked off. Now we need to get some potatoes in. So these are washed potatoes, and all I'm going to do is cube them into chunks, fairly small chunks, because we want them to cook fairly quickly and break down so that they thicken the soup as well. I don't peel my potatoes. You can if you want. It's a lot of effort to peel them, and I don't have a problem with the texture of the skin in the soup. It doesn't worry me in the slightest. But if it worries you, peel them first. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cube up a whole lot of these potatoes, and then I'm going to add stock and liquid to the soup. Once the potatoes are in there, I'm going to fry them off a little bit in the fat that's there, and then I will add some stock, some water, things like that, and we're going to cook it off. Haven't decided whether I want to add some chicken maybe to it, since I've got chicken that I've got to process, so I could add some chicken to it to cook down in there as well. And then just let it do its thing. And I'll be back. I'm adding all the potato. I'm going to add just a jar of stock to keep everything from sticking too badly to the bottom. And we're looking like this at the moment. So I probably do a couple more potatoes, and then we will add more liquid as we need. But for the moment, I'm just getting all the fat picked up off the bottom, any sort of fond that's left in the bottom from the bacon and the onion. But yeah, I'm going to add a couple more potatoes, bring it up to sort of 3/4 full, I suppose. And then I will work on chicken, and I might put some in this as well. I was thinking about the fact that Darryl won't be able to eat this because it's potato based. That I could use one of my bacon and onion cubes that I've already got to put it in a smaller pot and use some cauliflower in it. And do chicken and stock and stuff as well, and do a very similar flavour profile but with cauliflower instead of potato, and then he can have that as soup for dinner. So that might be the plan too. Alright, so I still have my pear syrup here. Worst comes worst, this can go in the fridge for today, and I'll make the jelly with it tomorrow, which is fine. You can make your jellies from store-bought pear juice, so it's not going to hurt to go overnight in the fridge, because I did get carried away and I did have a whole bunch of chicken in the fridge that needs to be sorted. The bottom of my chest fridge is so cold that you can't put fruit and veg on the bottom while they freeze, so some of these have ice in them, so they stay really, really nice and cold down there, not quite frozen, but they hold their dates well, but they're all due now. So what I'm going to do, I did some research on sous videing thighs, and the general consensus is what I thought. Thighs, it's not, you don't need to, because thighs are just so forgiving. But this isn't about making the most of the thighs. It's about being able to use the thighs in an appropriate way for the rest of the month. I could marinate them and fry them all up and freeze them as cooked, but that limits the choices of what I can do with them. Whereas if I freeze them and I vacuum seal them so that they can be sous vide from frozen, once they're sous vide, they can be fried off and used in many a way, and that sort of thing. I would have liked to have done some frozen as is, but I do think I've got some frozen raw ones still in the freezer anyway. I think I've got a couple of bags left, only because I was thinking I wanted to do buttermilk chicken at some point this month, but I need it to be raw to marinate in the buttermilk and then crumb and fry. So we'll see how we go with that. But I left a little late. So it's Monday, and we did Costco last Saturday. So it's my own fault for leaving it this long. I should have just bagged it up and froze it. I did all those wings bagged up and frozen and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I got carried away. So what I think I might do is I've got some larger vacuum seal bags. I might just salt and pepper some thighs, lay them out flat and vacuum seal them up, and we can test that out in the sous vide in the next couple of weeks. I also have a container of breast there, which I might throw in the soup to poach in the soup, and then I'll shred it up to put through the soup, and then it'll be loaded potato soup with chicken. Or I could fillet them and fry them off and do it that way. I don't know. They can be sous vide as well. Like, it's neither here nor there, but I just trying to make the most of the ingredients. I got a big pot of loaded potato soup, and it doesn't need any extra protein in it, but I could add it and then use some for Darryl's soup thing that I'll make him, which might just end up being a pot with some stock and some chicken poached in it, and then we can add some veggies or whatever to it. I don't know. I don't know. But first up, we need to get some of these thighs bagged up. I'm definitely going to bag these up. I'm just going to put salt and pepper on them. People suggest putting a little bit of butter in with them to sous vide with the butter, but I don't think they need it because the thighs are fatty enough as it is. They can be fried off in a little bit of butter afterwards if that's what it takes. So I think I'm just going to... These are 2 kilo packs, and we normally do like 1 kilo per meal depending on what we're doing. So I think bagging them up in 1 kilo lots is probably best. So all I'm going to do is lay them flat,
salt and pepper both sides, and then lay them flat in the sous vide bags and get them vacuum sealed up with the chamber sealer. We'll see what fits, because this is the bags that I've got. I do have some Kirkland textured bags as well, which I could use because they work in the vacuum sealer. The chamber vacuum sealer uses either. These are just cheaper. So we'll have a look at what they have. I have rolls as well as pre-cut ones, and the pre-cut ones are quart size, it says, so I assume they're a similar size anyway. They're a bit smaller than maybe there's more than one pre-cut. So pre-cut 1 quart size, these are bigger, so we'll see how we go. We'll flatten them out and we'll see what fits and go from there. Alright, so basically what I've done for the breasts is I cut them in half, filleted them in half, salt and peppered them, and then just put a sprinkle of flour. So we're basically doing like a really cheats dredge, and I'm going to fry them off in a bit of oil. Some of these are going to go back into soup for Darryl, some will go into the potato soup. The flour is just going to give them a little bit of a crispier texture, but they'll be poached in the soups anyway, so we don't want them fully dredged. We just want to give them a little bit of browning, and that flour will help to do that. So I'm going to cook them off in batches in that bit of oil, and that will create some bits in the bottom of this pot that will be Darryl's soup that I will throw whatever together to make. We'll figure it out. It'll be whatever it is. So I'm just going to fry those off and then put them aside. I'll shred some up to put in the potato soup, which I've turned off for the moment because I'm just having a lot of trouble with the new stoves getting them to run at a really low simmer. Everything's just running too high. So I've still got 2 trays of thighs here. I did think about trying to marinate one in the cowboy candy marinade that I normally do with the paprika and everything else, and see how that works as sous videing. Otherwise I just have to cook them off and then freeze them cooked, because I can't freeze them raw if I'm not going to cook them from frozen. So I don't know, I stuffed myself up a little bit by leaving them as long as I did, so we'll see. So I'm still cooking off the chicken breasts in batches, but there's a simple answer to my chicken thigh issue. The canners are still set up from yesterday. Let's just can it. Let's just throw the thighs in jars and we will can it, and then it can be used for soups or stir fries or whatever later in the month. So I'm just going to trim any bits of gristle or bone out of them, and then fill some quart jars. I don't know how many thighs go in each jar, so I'll wash more as I need to, but 4, and we just cold raw pack like this. So there's sort of 5, there's a little bit of gristle on that one. So we've got 5 in there. Should probably fit. There we go. 5.5 sort of thing.
I just need to run after the mail and the avocado.
So probably a kilo-ish per jar, so that'll work. So then I'll grab 2 more, maybe 3 jars. We'll fill them up and I'll just can them. I'll just do a run with just the 5 jars in it. And then that way they're on the shelf and not in the freezer. Alright, so we've cooked all the chicken off in this Dutch oven. And then what I'm doing is adding a jar of the homemade stock. And we'll deglaze this pan with that. And this will be the base to Darryl's soup. So it'll be nice and flavourful. Alright, so we've got all the chicken here. It's not necessarily cooked all the way through because we're going to throw it in the soup and stuff. And the thought was that it's 2 kilos. It's probably more than I should be using for this sort of a thing. But this is going to be a few meals worth of a dish. So we'll throw some in there to continue to poach through. I'm wondering if I want to dice this up before I shred it up before I put it in there, because that soup's already mostly cooked. This one I can pull it and re-shred it sort of thing afterwards. So decisions. I might shred this up a little bit. I'm just running out of space with raw chicken and cooked chicken and all the rest of it. Alright, like the other time we've got, wrong angle, there we go. We've got chicken. Now I overloaded it a little bit, so there's a few pieces that are a bit unshredded, but in general it's now shredded chicken in different varying sizes, and we're going to throw that into the potato soup. And then we will shred this one later. Once it's poached in here a little bit longer, I'll just use a fork or the meat breaker upper in the bottom here. And we'll mix the potato soup one through with my wooden spoon that seems to have gone missing. I'll mix this through, and that will be nearly done, that one. When we serve it with cheese and sour cream, which is like the whole loaded potato thing. This one, again, I think I'm going to grab some cauliflower out, which will be a filler for it, and then we'll go from there. I just had a thought that I could add a jar of the canned mushrooms and mushroom stock in there as well. We might break them up a little bit with the meat breaker upper, because I can them in nice big chunks thinking you'd want them to hold the texture, but they're probably a bit big for a soup. Right, so like normal, we've got our jars of chicken. I was going to put a bit of salt in the top of each one. Where did my salt go? One of the children used it before. So I'll just put a heaped half teaspoon of salt in each one. And everything will create its own juices and everything else. So all we've got to do is clean the rims of the jars, and we'll put these on fingertip tight, and then these are going to be pressure canned for 90 minutes, which will cook all the chicken in the jars, and then we will have jars of fresh cooked chicken thighs on the shelf to use however we want. So the soup that I made today could be used with one of these jars rather than me cooking chicken to do it with, if I didn't need to cook the chicken anyway. Thank you. I just need a regular size one for this jar. I think I've run out. Not a wide mouth, a regular one. Yeah, thank you.
I couldn't find them, so I said to Sonnet, do you know where they are? And she went straight to them and grabbed them to me. And I said, you rock. And she said, like a stuff.
Yep. A viewer sent me some new lids, which is great because I seem to have run out of regular mouth lids. So I needed just one regular mouth lid. These Jars brand are the brand that I buy for myself quite regularly. I do like them. So one regular. So we've got these 5. As I said, they'll go pressure canned for 90 minutes. And then these chicken jars will just sit on the shelf. Darryl's the one who uses them the most. He tends to pull them out, fry them off, and use them in wraps and things like that. But they can be used in soups and stews and pastas and anything else. Low carb wraps, yes. So we're going to get these done, and that saves me trying to put more in the freezer. All right, the chicken is in the canner. Both the soups are pretty much ready. We're just going to pop them in to reheat when ready to go. Let's get these breads made. They're a little more proofed than they need to be because we used yeast and that water was a bit warmer than expected, but it works. These bannetons are just a little bit long for these bread tins, but they work fine. So we just place them in there like that. We're going to attempt to score them, though I haven't found any of my razor blades. But we will, the dough's a bit loose too, so we'll see what happens and what doesn't. It's fine. 2 seconds. Lids on, and then these will go into a, I'm putting them in cold oven, but it'll be 200 odd to 220 for 35 minutes, 40 minutes from cold, and then I'll take the lids off and we'll do a further 15, 20 minutes. Alright, so I've got the counter going and the bread in, so I may as well give at least one lot of this a go. Now, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to try doing an 8-cup batch because I'm going to run out of time. We'll see how it works. So we want 8 cups of liquid. So we've got 8 cups of liquid. We want a 1/4 cup of lemon juice per 4. So we're going to do 1/2 cup of lemon juice. We're going to add, so 1/2 cup. A little over is not going to matter, so just do that, 1/2 cup, and then we're going to add our calcium water. So we want, so we've got 3, 6, 8 teaspoons of calcium water. We're going to bring this up to a simmer, and while we do that, we're going to mix our sugar and our pectin. Now the Pomona's recipe has a cup of sugar per 4 cups of the pear in the pear recipe, and some of these pears were quite firm and not overly sweet, so we're probably going to stick with that. It's still far less than we'll be using a standard jam, which I wasn't using the low methyl ester pectin for, so we're going to do 2 cups to the 8 cups, which, as I said, a standard jam recipe has the same amount of sugar as juice. Alright, so we're at 2 cups there. Then we need to add our pectin, which is 6 teaspoons of pectin. So we got 6 teaspoons of pectin. We're going to whisk that into our sugar, and that way it disperses better and you don't get clumping. You do that with all pectins. Alright, so we've got our sugar, we've got our juice that is heating, and we're going to bring that up to a rolling boil. We're going to add the sugar, stirring it, bring it back to a rolling boil, and then we'll fill our jars. So I've got 9 half-pint jars here, some lug lid, some ball mason, and we shall give this a go. Okay, so we've got our pear juice at a rolling boil. Rolling boil means that when you run something through it, it's still boiling. It doesn't stop it boiling. And then we're going to add our sugar and pectin mix, and we're going to whisk this up. Vigorously to make sure that everything is blended. And we want to bring it back to a rolling boil. Now, because it's using the low methyl ester pectin, it doesn't have to come to a gelling point while you're doing this. It will set once it's in the jars, is the theory, which is great, except that it also means that you can't really test it. You just have to hope that you got all your measurements right and it's going to work. And with the 8 cups, but you know. So now it's just a matter of getting it up to rolling boil and holding it there for a minute or two. And then we will fill our jars and we will steam can those in the steam canner, so nice and easy and quick. I've got 9 jars cleaned, mind you, which should be not enough, because I just realised this is 8 cups and they're only half cups. So I'm going to have to quickly grab some other jars. before it starts setting and I can't get it in the jars. I was thinking about doing it in a 4-cup lot and then I did it in an 8-cup. So, you know, has ended up being quite a lot. So I might only end up doing this part in the jam and I might turn the rest into a syrup because I don't really need that much jam and more jelly on my shelf. I don't know what to do. I just didn't want to waste it, that's all I know. Alright, so we've got it at a rolling boil. We'll just let it do that for 60 seconds and then we'll turn it off. Alright, I just took the lids off the bread. It's looking good. I tested this on a little bit of a cold piece of metal and it does seem to be gelling up right, so that's good. So we will fill our jars. I was talking to someone in messages the other day and they were asking me about doing a headspace tool for in 3D printed, and I've got this one that I've been designing with a little saying on it, which I'm really excited about eventually getting done, but I'm just so short on time at the moment that I'm getting nothing that I want to get done. I'm only getting the needs. Can you do me a favor, please? I don't think I'm going to have quite enough jars. Can you find me a couple more of either this size or, you know, like the Aldi jam jars or something? Though I might, because I think I've thought about this the wrong way. I was sitting there going, they're 1/2 pint jars. I'm using 8 cups, 1/2 cup. They're not, they're 1 cup jars. They're 1/2 pint, but 1 cup. So I might actually be okay. I think I might just be 1 short, maybe. Yeah, can you give it a wash for me? Thank you, babe. That one didn't quite fill, but I might leave that one. I might cap that one and put that in the fridge, and then I can test the gelling point. Not that you could see a whole lot of what I was doing then. Test the gelling point of that by putting that one in the fridge, and I'll lid up these ones in the meantime. And so we got 9 of that. So yeah, I've got another full batch plus more. So plus a half, so I've got enough to do like another 13. I don't think I really want another 13 jars of jam on the shelf, so I might just cap that for the moment, put it in the fridge and make a decision tomorrow. I have to can those tomatoes too. I didn't do that today. I really have to do that tomorrow, so I'm gonna have to do that anyway, and I'll decide what to do with the rest of the pear. But for the moment I'm just gonna clean the rims on these, get lids on these, and then I can get the steam canner out. Alright, so we've got some white vinegar. I've got, let's do our ball mason first. This one. And I just need to find the rings for those. They're just underneath the bench there. Ooh. And then we're just going to wipe over the lug lid ones as well. Rings, 4 rings.
It's 5.
For these jars. Fingertip tight. The half full one I'll put a plastic lid on and that can go in the fridge. And then the lug lid jars are 63ml jars. Just wiping the insides of the jars out. And these have to go on as tight as I can crank them. Doesn't really matter, they're very hot. So lug lid jars get full hand tightened, ball mason get fingertip tied. So then I'm going to pull the steam canner out and I'm going to steam can these for the 15 minutes and they will be done. I'm going to put the rest of the pear juice in the fridge for tomorrow and I'll do the tomatoes tomorrow as well. Because I'm pretty much done for today. Other than finishing the soup and the bread and the chicken still going in the canner too and doing these ones. Steam canner, got to remember that because the jars are hot we need it to start hot, so we've got it on the stove to get the water hot and this plate hot before we put the jars in there so that everything's the same temperature. Then we'll put the lid on. For my altitude I need to get to the dark green zone on the steam canner lid and then I'll run it for 15 minutes and they will be done. Just realised that I grabbed the vanilla out and then forgot to put any in. Oh well, too late now. So hopefully it tastes good regardless. But yeah, well and truly done for the day. It's 3:30 and yeah, over it. I am super happy with my bread at the moment. The bread tins are working fine for what I need them to, and we're getting some good results out of it. And yeah, very happy with the breads. Couple of near perfect loaves. Again, my cuts need to be a little bit deeper, but I just need to get a new blade for my lame, and then this will be to have with dinner and then tomorrow or whatever. About 10 minutes left on both canners and then I can stop for a bit. Right, it is Tuesday morning and we're getting a bit of a late start. It's 10:15. I did a bunch of D&D work this morning while it was cold, but we're getting some stuff sorted. So first up, I've still got a whole lot of eggs to use up. So I've got some eggs here. I've just made us some hollandaise because that also uses eggs. I've got bacon frying. I've got our sourdough sandwich bread that I'm going to toast up. Tomatoes, avocado, eggs, bacon, hollandaise over the top. So we're going to use a bunch of eggs up for that and get that out of the way. Late breakfast, early lunch, and then I'll keep on moving through what I need to do. The chicken came out of the canner last night, so that's what the chicken looks like. I did have a couple of jars fail and I don't really know why. It's odd, but they've gone straight in the fridge this morning and I will either empty them into something and freeze them, or Darryl will use them over the next few days, because again, now it's in the fridge, it's got a few days life on it because it's cooked. And I'll just show you everything when I plate it up. So hollandaise in the Thermomix is one of those simple things that just really give me pleasure, like custards and stuff. You throw everything in and hit thicken and you've got perfect hollandaise. It works with Nuttelex as well. We used to do it with Nuttelex before we could do dairy, so it works with Nuttelex or butter. And yeah, you just have this perfect hollandaise and you haven't had to stir it or whisk it or emulsify it or anything because the Thermomix does it all. It's just one of those super simple things, but totally worth it, in my opinion. All right, I pulled the jam out of the fridge, the jelly, set up really nicely. I have to put the other ones in. Well, see, you normally throw them on the shelf and they're supposed to be set. So that was processed. That wasn't processed. Stuck straight in the fridge, set up into a nice jelly. Now, I don't have a huge experience with jams because I said we don't eat jams a lot. But this is liquidy. Like, it's not. It's semi-solid, but there is some... I don't know. So I'm not opening one of these at the moment because I don't want to waste it. But it definitely looks to be not as solid as this one. And is that just because this is chilled? I don't know. Anyway, these will go on the shelf as pear jam or pear jelly, and they will be used accordingly. We will use them on something, even if it gets spread onto some Danishes or whatever else, like the apricot jam ended up being doing, because but it might set up fine. Like this that's been in the fridge is perfect. So, not sure. Let me know if you... pure pear. It's lovely. So, don't know. We'll get these on the shelf. We'll use them in whatever way. But yeah, I don't know that I will bother doing the rest as jelly. So what I think I need to do is just cook it down into a syrup. So I'm just stick it in a pot, basically do 3/4 the amount of it in sugar and cook it down till it's thick and syrupy. Alright, got waylaid by a bunch of different so it is now almost 2 o'clock and I haven't done anything further yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these what does this work out? This is almost a litre, so this is 8. This is 12 cups of pear juice. And I'm going to put, I'll start off with, let's go half. Let's go 6 cups of sugar. It's a lot, but this is going to be used as a concentrate. So like in SodaStream, where you only add like 1/4 cup to an entire litre SodaStream, or in the Ninja Slushie, which I don't know if I mentioned, I managed to get a refund on the one that died. So I'm going to buy myself a new one, and I'll probably buy one of those nice new green ones maybe. But anyway, so the syrup concentrate can be used in the Ninja Slushie. So you want it sugary enough that it's not going to freeze up. So most cordials or syrups are 1:1 juice to sugar. I don't want to do quite that much. So this is 12 cups of liquid. So we'll probably put 4 to 6 cups of sugar in here and some citric acid or lemon juice, and we'll taste it. And we'll just see if we can get it to cook down a little bit. Less water means more concentrated pear flavour, and that sugar is better ratioed. So I'm going to get this on the stove. I'm going to add the sugar, and I'm just going to stir it until that sugar starts dissolving, and then simmer it until it drops in level a bit. The level's going to pick up with the juice with the sugar probably to almost the top, and then hopefully we can back it back down. The other thing I definitely have to get done is these tomatoes, because they have been waiting long enough. I don't know how many jars I'm going to fill. This is all I've done so far, cleaned so far. I have to find more. So all we're doing is filling it. I could puree these before I fill it, but then I'd have to heat them back up to get rid of the air before canning them. So I'm just doing them as chunks, and then I can puree them afterwards if that's what I want. When I decide what I'm using them for, whether it's pizza sauces or pasta sauces or whatever, I can then puree them up. So we're going to debubble them well, which will break up a lot of that tomato anyway, and get them nice and full like that. And we're just going to keep on filling jars with this gorgeous roasted tomato mix. Now, tomatoes are a bit of a hot topic in the canning. There are new guidelines state that you need to add lemon juice or citric acid to every tomato canning. Anyone who's been canning for a long time sort of pish-poshes about that, because it's been canning tomatoes for a long time without any issues. The reasoning behind it, they say, is because lots of new varieties of tomatoes have been developed, and a lot of them are less acidic than they used to be. So it's like a safety measure to make sure that the acidity of your tomatoes is high enough. I'm on the side of, I normally don't worry about it. But if I'm going to add acid to them, I generally add citric acid, not lemon juice, because depending what I'm using the tomatoes for, that lemon juice flavour can be a little bit, it can come through. So I prefer to use citric acid because it's tasteless but still does the same thing. I have used onion in my mix, but the ratios of my onion are well under the safe margins for doing it, like with salsa you do, it's 7 cups of tomatoes to half an onion or a quarter of an onion or something along those lines, whatever it is. This ratio is a similar sort of a level, and it doesn't even have any jalapenos or anything else in it that's going to limit it either. It uses some vinegar to help with the acidity, which also helps when you're adding non-acidic ingredients. But it's going to be your kitchen, your rules this one. Some people would not put any onions in their straight tomato jars. Some people will use citric acid. Some people will use lemon. The guidelines state that it should be straight tomatoes and that there should be acid added if you're water bath canning. So full disclosure, that is up to the individual and their comfort levels. I do find like these tomatoes aren't going to be eaten raw. So if they're going to go bad in water bath canning, as in like moldy, then you can see it and it's moldy, right? If they're going to go bad as in botulism type issues, anything that you open the theory is that if you boil it for 10 minutes, then you're going to kill off the spores. None of this will be used straight from the jar. Generally speaking, it's all cooked as well. So again, your kitchen, your rules, but I'm giving you all the information. All right, so we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 jars, which, you know, is fantastic, but also means I have to run the 2 canners because I can't fit all of these in one. So I'll have to run both. I'll run both pressure canners as steam canners for these. There was already 3 jars of tomatoes left on the shelf, so this brings us up to what did I say is here? 13 quarts. So I probably need to say no to canning tomatoes next month, though we're going to be getting low on salsa and pizza sauce by then. So yeah, I don't know. As I said, I prefer the summer tomatoes for salsa and pizza sauce if I can. I am hoping that I can get a garden going this year and that I'll have some of my own to can, would be really nice. But I'm not holding my breath after the last few years. So anyway, all of these are ball mason style jars, 2-piece lids. So I have made a mess as per usual. I have some regular mouth lids, and then some wide mouth lids. Have bands. So as usual, bands are fingertip tight. The product in the jars is cold, so we're going to start off with cold water. And tomatoes from cold, I think it's 30 minutes. I will double check before I do it, but I'm pretty sure it's 30 minutes when they're cold packed. So that will be the plan, and I've still got that syrup coming up to a simmer as well. Do have to decide what I'm going to do with the rest of that soup. Do I want to freeze it in portions, or I was wondering, I reckon I could probably can it. I reckon I could 3/4 fill the jar with the thickened soup. It's not thickened with anything other than the potato, it's just that it's been cooked. There's no thickening agent in it, no flour, no nothing. So it is cannable, it's a bit thicker than I would normally can a soup. But I reckon, I suppose the bacon, there is restrictions against canning bacon. That's, again, your kitchen, your rules. I always put bacon in my loaded potato soup when I can it. But it is a bit thicker than I would normally can. But I could mix up just some bouillon water, just some water with stock powder in it, and like 3/4 filled jars with the soup, and then stir through a little bit extra of the liquid. Obviously everything's going to cook more because it's got to go in there for 90 minutes, but it's a soup. I don't think that that's going to be to its detriment or anything, because there's a lot of soup, which I did on purpose. I needed to use the chicken, I needed to use the potatoes, but yeah, I'm wondering if maybe I should can some. Let's get these in the canners anyway first. So apparently it's 45 minutes for water bath canning tomatoes, so I may as well pressure can them since they're in the pressure canner, because it only takes 10-ish minutes to pressure can tomatoes. And these are going to be used for cooking purposes. They're not going to be used as fresh, like, you know, as a relish or anything like that. So being cooked isn't going to cause any issues with, like, pressure cooked isn't going to cause any issues. So yeah, I'll probably just pressure can them for 10 minutes rather than the steam canning in the pressure canners for the 45, just to get stuff done. Let's empty out some of our super cubes that I've had in the fridge and I haven't had a chance to empty yet. This is the avocado pesto, I think. I really should have labelled these bags. I will have to double check back on the videos. These were the ones that I did with Mum, I think. And so it's an avocado pesto type thing that can be used as a sauce, warmed up, and used as like a pasta sauce and stuff. That was the idea, if I remember correctly. So that's what these ones were, and I think these ones are as well. So these are all 1 cup measures, just different brands. So that first one was the Super Cube. This is an Osman brand, I think it is, and I have been happy with all of them. I have purposely only bought ones that have rigid lids because that is my preference, but all the ones that I've tried, Super Cube included, I have liked. Now I have had suggestions for the 2 tablespoon size Super Cube is something that I should grab for, what was it that we were talking about the other day that the 2 tablespoon one works well for? Honestly, I can't remember right this. Oh, cream. So the cream that I buy from Costco is about like $6.59 or something for a litre, I think it is, and I pay like $5 something for 600 mils locally. So when I go on my shopping trip, I always buy a couple of the big ones because they are so much cheaper. But then we have to I can only buy enough that we're going to get through them because, you know, they go off. And we do freeze cream, but it's only good for certain things once it's frozen. Hot drinks, cooking, things like that. And someone was saying that the 2 tablespoon Super Cubes are really good for freezing that cream for cooking purposes and stuff. And that would be probably ideal. Though I could probably go half cup, to be honest, in the size meals that we make. I probably don't use any less than half a cup, if not a cup, I suppose, sometimes. So, but that's probably something I could do, is use these silicone food molds to freeze that cream once every 8 weeks or whatever. I don't think I can fit an extra one in here, but I will probably have a bag that has a spare spot in the freezer. I don't think I can fit it even if I do 3 on a diagonal, maybe. No. So I will find a spare spot. So what I might do is, I really just don't, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, pressure canning meat is a 90-minute thing, and it's just, I don't think I want to do that. First can has hit 10 minutes, I need to turn that off. The other one's been going a couple minutes, got 8 minutes more. It took longer to get up to pressure. So canning the soup with chicken in is a 90-minute canning job. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I have to work tomorrow. I really don't think I want to do it, but I just don't know how much soup there is. Like, I could fill all these and probably still have more left over, I feel like. So I'm just not sure. All right, so let's just see how much here there is. I was thinking for dinner, there's a whole lot of broccoli that we need to use. Oh, this lid is suctioned on there. And this would make like a nice creamy sauce over broccoli. So maybe it's probably not as much here as I think there is, honestly. So maybe I fill these. I'll send some up to Mum so she can have some in her freezer. So we might pack them nice and solidly in here. And that's one set. Another set. I might do myself up some for lunch tomorrow. Like that. So there's a serve for lunch tomorrow, and that leaves me with this sort of amount, which I think will be fine. What I might do is I might heat it up, add a bit more liquid and some cheese, and make it sort of a really cheesy, creamy, sort of a soupy type thing. And then I'll cook up a whole lot of broccoli, zucchini or whatever, might roast them, and put this over the top of it. And that will be dinner tonight. And then we've got 8 of the 1 cup measures to go in the fridge as well. Yeah, rather than trying to bother about canning and stuff, that's what I'm going to do. All right, so we're going to roast up. I've got the oven preheating, and I'm going to roast up the zucchini and broccoli in big pieces for 30-40 minutes. And then I will top them with a bit of lemon juice and Parmesan cheese. So once I fill the 2 trays, I will put a bit of olive oil and salt and pepper and toss them, and then we will roast them and then dress them again once they're done. So, and drizzle generous amount there. We will use some of this garlic salt mix as well. We'll toss, and then we will bake. All right, and lastly, we just need to do something with this pear cordial. So I'm just going to put a few tablespoons of lemon juice in here. You could put some citric acid or some tartaric acid, things like that. It's not a huge amount. It's not going to last very long. As you can see, so it was full all the way to the top once I added the sugar, and then we reduced it by at least 1/3 again. And now it's got sort of a thicker consistency. I could let it go further, but it's 25. So I just want to get it sorted. So all we're going to do is, I normally use my passata jars for cordial, but I can't put the passata jars in the steam canner, and I just want to get these quickly done in the steam canner because it's the quickest way to do it. So I've washed the jars in hot water because we're putting hot liquid in them, and then we're just going to fill these up like that. And these jars, I prefer, as I said, I prefer the passata jars for pouring cordials and stuff, but these jars are ball mason jars, and I have pouring lids for them, so it will work. All right, it's not going to make a huge amount. We didn't plan on having a huge amount out of it, but it is lovely tasting. All right, so these 2 jars I'll clean up and I'll quickly steam can them for 15 minutes. This one I'll put a lid on and I'll just put it in the fridge because it's not full. And we will use this in the next week or so. And then these 2 can, just go on the shelf with the pineapple cordials and stuff and be another option. It does taste really lovely. Very sweet, but that's how we've purposely made them like this so that they can be used diluted heavily. So that's done. All right, I'm heating up last night's soup with a bit of cream and cheese in it. This is nearly done, so I'm just going to squeeze half a lemon over each tray. I'm going to use some Parmesan. And pop it back in the oven for another 10. And do the same thing with the other tray, and then dinner will be served. Alrighty, and this is what the veggies look like. Still crispy, but cooked. So I'll put a layer of them. This is Mum's one, layer in the bottom, and a layer of the creamy, cheesy potato soup as dinner. And I'm going to put some in another one for her for lunch tomorrow as well, because we have plenty like that. So she'll have one for lunch tomorrow, one for dinner tonight. It is a work afternoon, and I don't generally film on work afternoons, but I just wanted to show you, these are the chicken jars that didn't seal, so we're using them up. They've been in the fridge. So this is what the chicken comes out looking like. It's just cooked thighs, shredded chicken. You can eat it straight out of the jar, or you can heat it up. I'm going to turn them into some chicken patties, I think, and serve them up with some veggies and stuff. So I want to leave most of the liquid behind and just pull the chicken out, and then I'm going to blend it. Sonnet, is there any mayo in the fridge, or can you grab the stuff out to make mayo, please? How much?
No, I don't know if it's gonna be enough.
Could you grab the stuff out to make another batch for me? So I'm going to shred it up, mix it with some mayo, some eggs, some breadcrumbs, that sort of thing, and just turn it into like a shredded chicken patty, like a tuna patty type thing. And then I'm going to serve it up. So I'll show it to you in the end, but I just wanted to show you that this is how the chicken comes out of the jars. So veggies done with lemon and Parmesan again. We added some carrot to this batch, so a good amount in here for Mum. And then the chicken patties. Look like this. So crispy, both sides, little chicken patties. So there is veggies, and I'll get a knob of butter to put on the top of this for her too. This is all I've done with the chicken patties, is just fried them off in just a tiny bit of oil, and that's what they're looking like. So we've got plenty. It was 2 jars of chicken, so it was just under 2 kilos of chicken, mixed with cheese, mayo, a few breadcrumbs, a few eggs, some chives, some seasonings, that sort of stuff. So all done, and there's 2 trays of those veggies, so plenty for everyone. And yeah, that's one way to use that canned chicken nice and easily. All right, Friday morning, I've got the smoker on. I'm gonna split this up and smoke the whole thing because we've got 3 of them in the fridge to use. So first up, I'm gonna make the pork rub that I always make. For putting over the smoked pork. We have sugar. I will add some molasses to this to make it brown sugar. We will use salt. We will use pepper, paprika, garlic powder, a bit of mustard powder, and some onion powder. Alright, so we got a whole lot of rub here. This is for far more than one lot of pork. So it'll go in a jar, be labelled and used for other roasts as well. I have mustard to coat my pork with. So we got these things. Now I'm going to leave that cup in there so that I can use the cup to pour the rub so that I don't get raw meat contaminating the rub. Okay, so next thing, this is one of the porks. This one is 7.9 kilos. I'm going to split it into 3 pieces so that we get it cooked in time for eating for today. And we'll put it in the smoker. So we'll put this rub on it. First up though, I need to get it split into the pieces I want to use it, get the rind off and get it re-wrapped so that it's all ready to go. Alright, let's split this into 3 as evenly as possible, but we will assess each one by its internal temperature anyway. Then we're going to take the ties off. This is the same method as I use all the time. We'll take the ties off and we'll keep them, and then we'll shorten them to tie the roast back up once the skin has been removed. Now, I do have potatoes, so I probably will cook some potatoes under some of the skin, but we do like to leave a decent amount of fat on the roast as well. So we'll leave some on the skin, some on the roast. And we'll slice this up to cook over the potatoes afterwards. So we just tie them a little bit shorter and we wrap them around the roast so that it's all tucked in. I need to get myself some of those reusable silicone ties. I think I have them on my wish list, I just haven't got around to getting them, so that you can adjust it for the roast. But there we go. So that one's all tied up and ready to go, and I'll just repeat the process with the next 2. Alright, so we've got all 3 of our roasts done. Now we're going to mustard them. Messy process, but well worth it. So I'm just going to put a good dollop of mustard on each pork, and we're just going to coat it with the mustard all over, just into all the nooks and crannies. This helps the rub stick, but also helps with moisture and flavour, because mustard is yummy. If you don't like mustard, still give it a go, hey, because it's, you get the acidity of it, I suppose, but it's not overwhelming in any way. It's with all the other flavours, the smoke and the rub and everything else. It's not like you specifically taste the mustard, but it definitely adds to the overall flavour profile. So once we've done that, we're going to do the rub. We're going to try and pat the rub on rather than rub it, and then what falls off we will use off the board onto the other sides of the roast, but it's always a messy process. So we then pat it on, let whatever's going to fall off, and then use the stuff on the board to pat on as well until we have a coating over the whole pork, sorry. Anyone who follows me on Facebook would know that we have a rooster that's currently living in our yard. He may be getting moved along because he has started crowing all day right there, and it's driving me nuts.
Perfect timing. Start talking about it, it grows.
So yeah, we're just going to create a crust on the whole thing. It doesn't have to be a huge amount.
Do you want like a tray or like a cast iron?
It'll go straight in the smoker as is, so it can just go from the board to the smoker. So we're just going to do this with each roast and get them as well coated as we can. As I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Right, next thing. So we're at 11:15. I need to start lunch within sort of an hour. We had a late breakfast, but I'm going to do those frittatas for lunch, so I need to sort that out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some hamburger rolls. I'm not sure what we're having with the pork for dinner, but maybe we'll do some rolls, potatoes and things like that. Maybe I'll do some coleslaw up. I don't know. So we don't have any bread as such at the moment, so I'm going to make some brioche rolls up with my starter that's very flat because I haven't fed it while I've been at work. So we'll get this used, fed and happy again for the next 4 or 5 days while I've got time to use it. But yeah, I'm just going to do my standard light brioche roll dough to make some burger buns or sliders or whatever with. Alright, let's do the frittatas for lunch. It's 12 o'clock. I've got 2 batches of dough proofing. I just juiced the last couple of lemons that I had and added some frozen lemon juice from the freezer so that I've got enough lemon juice to make a big batch of lemon curd. I was thinking that maybe I'll do raspberry lemon curd scrolls or something. I think that would be awesome. Maybe just lemon curd cream cheese icing on raspberry scrolls or something like that. Whatever. So I'm going to make the frittatas. Now, greens wise, I don't have much in the way of leafy greens, but I do have some zucchini left. So I'm going to sweat this zucchini off while to defrost this caramelized onion, and I'm going to find the cooked bacon in the freezer, dice up tomato, and that's what we'll have in the bottom of them. We want 16 eggs, so we got 10 in those so far, 11, 12, 13. Look at these lovely lavender eggshells. Aren't they pretty? This is what, it's a bloom. So I think I've mentioned it before. I don't know how well I explained it, but this purple color is a bloom. The eggs are actually brown underneath if you wet them. The white that makes them look purple is just the bloom over the top. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16. I look forward to getting all the chickens in their pens properly so that I can see which chickens are actually hatching what, and we can keep breeding those ones that have the bloom. I 3D printed myself this little stand so that I can put it on my bench when I've got a few eggs in it so they don't go rolling away for me. Alright, so we've got 16 eggs. Let's get rid of the eggshells and I'll grab the cottage cheese. 500 gram tub of cottage cheese. You could have, of course, used less than this, but it's a 500 gram tub, so for my purposes, it works out to fill the 2 pie trays and just use 1 tub at once, which means less risk of anything going to waste. So I'm going to blend this. I need to dice up a tomato. Alright, we had a little kerfuffle with the Thermomix. I used the TM6 was the plan, to use the TM6 for blending the eggs because I want to use the TM7 for the lemon curd, except that then it wouldn't recognise the bowl for some reason. Probably just me not having cleaned the pins properly, so I had to swap bowls. Anyway, I only have 2 TM7 bowls at the moment, and Apollo hasn't done the dishes today yet, even though I have asked, so I've only got 1 clean at the moment. So yeah, it's just caused some issues with 2 is just not quite enough if they're not washed when asked to be washed. So that's what I have the 6 for, but the 6 is in a really inconvenient spot at the moment, and you know, it's just all was all just a little bit too much, but we got there in the end. So I've put half the zucchini, bacon, onion mix in each, a diced tomato in each. I've just grating up a little bit of cheese. Roti grater would be easier, but I think it's over on the sink as well. So we're just going to do this and put a handful. Don't need much anyway because we've got the cottage cheese in the egg mix. So sometimes I will use coconut cream in the egg mix, and this cheese becomes more important. But because cottage cheese is in this, it's already pretty cheesy. The cheddar just adds a different flavour. And then I've blended this on high in the Thermomix. So all we do is we pour it in evenly. Oven preheating to 180, 200-ish, 190-ish. And now I'm going to throw these in the oven, and they will take 30 to 40 minutes, and that will be lunch done for today. I actually did a little bit of a test run with these doughs. This one here I let go in the KitchenAid for about 15 minutes. Now, it's not something I do very often because my KitchenAid is not happy with me lately. It got very warm in 15 minutes worth of dough, and I was doing 2 batches, so I didn't really have the capacity to do it. But I've been trying to decide whether I wanted to replace my KitchenAid with something that is more dough oriented, like an angstrom or something like that. Some people highly recommend Bosch. I don't know, but I've been thinking about it. So I did this for 15 minutes. And that did it to a window pane, which is not something that I normally bother doing because it just really isn't that important to me. But the dough is lovely. It's been sitting there. It was the second one I did, and it's already not tacky to the touch and things like that. It's really, really nice. I could probably roll this out right now for its second proof. But the batch of dough that I did the first wave, I only needed it for the 4 or 5 minutes just to bring it into a smooth ball, and it's still really sticky and tacky and not usable yet. So I've just thrown it in the proofing box because it's a little bit cool today. So it needs that second proofing to be manageable to handle. But that's pretty, interesting sort of a thing that this has done the 15 minutes kneading. So it's nice and bubbly. It's sat there for probably 25 minutes while I've done other things, but doesn't actually need a full second proof. Like, I could use this now. So something to be mindful of, but not something that I can always do in the KitchenAid. But I'm still going to let it sit for the moment because I'm softening the butter that I'm going to use for the inside, and lunch isn't quite ready, and I'd prefer to serve lunch before I start rolling up this dough. I do have the lemon juice for the curd defrosted though. I only had enough lemon juice fresh for about 100 grams. I needed 300, so I pulled out some of my frozen lemon juice ice cubes. So we're going to make a big batch of lemon curd to use. We can use some in ice cream if we want, but also I want to do those raspberry scrolls, and I'll do a cream cheese lemon curd icing to do them because I think that just sounds wonderful. All right, lemon curd. Again, one of those super simple things that the Thermomix just makes so easy. Now I'm going to do a big batch of it because we'll use it for a few different things over the next few days. So we want 480 grams of sugar. It asks for white sugar. Your color will be better if you use white sugar because it's white. Using raw sugar is going to give you a slightly different color to your lemon curd. We don't care. I don't buy white sugar in general. Sometimes I have it for something specific, but in general, we only buy raw sugar. So, all right, so we got 480 grams of sugar. We want 300 grams of lemon juice, which I should have the right amount here.
6 and 6.
300 grams of lemon juice. And then we want 240 grams of unsalted butter cut into chunks. I don't buy unsalted butter, so it's salted butter, but I don't mind. Look at that, that's exactly what was left in the packaging. So 240 grams. And then it's 6 eggs. I thought it was 6 egg yolks, but this says 6 eggs. So I don't know if this is the recipe I normally use, but I got Sonnet to separate the eggs because I was expecting it to be 6 egg yolks. And she did, but we don't need to by the looks. So using whole eggs is better, but we will see. And then we're going to put a lid on, and like the custards and everything else, thicken mode, and it will run and it will make me lemon curd. Alrighty, lunch is done, and the lemon curd has 2 minutes left to go. So just waiting on that, and then I'll have to start on the doughs, I think. So I'm going to have some lunch first, and then I will come back to doing the dough for its shaping and second proofing. I do have to help the kids with some schoolwork that's due today as well, so there's that too. I'm just waiting for that lemon curd to finish so I can show that to you as well. But the frittata done with the cottage cheese is definitely a little bit softer than done with, say, the coconut cream or milk or something, because it's cheese. It sets up the same, but initially when it's hot is a little bit less so, but it is lovely and tasty. So it comes out like that. I went off to have lunch and had put this in the proofing box and then forgot to turn the proofing box on, and so it was actually colder than out in the open where it would have proofed better, but that's life. It'll be fine because it's going to do a second proof anyway. So let's shape it up into slider rolls and make those. I put plenty of flour on the board because it's a sticky dough, because it's a brioche, and then it's a little underproofed, but that's fine because it's going to do a second proof. Still plenty of gluten structure in it, just not quite where I'd like it to be, but I need to get stuff done. So we're using a bit of flour to give us a skin to work with so that we can manage it easier, just like that. Alright, now we're going to do it in approximately half per tray, and we have approximately 50 balls, 50 gram balls per tray, which I think leaves me with a little bit of leftover dough actually. We will work on that. Alright, so all we're going to do is we might do 60. And just like normal, using a bit of flour because the dough is sticky, and we're putting them into little dough balls like that, and then we're going to place them. So 55, 60 worth of dough brought into the middle with the floured side on the outside, so all the sticky stuff sticks together, creating a ball like that. And I'm just going to keep on going until I get the whole tray filled. Alright, time has completely got away from me. This was the dough that didn't really need proofing, but has ended up proofing. We will have a look at it. It's lovely, though. Hopefully it works alright as the scrolls as well. because it's a little overproof now probably, but that's fine. All right, so I put some flour on the board as I did with the other one, but it doesn't need anywhere near as much because it's much more malleable. Considering it's the same hydration and everything, it really does show that dough that is worked more, which, you know, makes sense when I'm doing all my sourdoughs and everything. The more you work the dough, the easier it is to do. But yeah, my KitchenAid just won't do it. So anyway, let's split this into two, and we'll do 2 sets of scrolls. I'll put one back in for the moment. This one is going to roll out for me. Now I might use a touch more flour. And then we're just going to roll this one out. So let me grab my rolling pin. And let's get this rolled out to roughly the size of the white rectangle is what I go for. But it's springing back a lot because I had to pull it in a lot because it was already double proof, so then I had to bring it into a ball bit to be able to manage it. So it's just going to need to relax a little bit. So we're just going to let it relax. We're going to roll it out, let it relax, roll it out until we get it to around about the size of that, which is fine because in the meantime that other half will relax again for me. And I need to mix up the inside. So I've got butter here that's been softening, though it's still pretty firm, so I'm probably going to have to use the Thermomix to get it to work. So what I might do is I have the lemon curd, which is beautiful and will thicken even more when it's chilling. I might transfer this to something else, and then I might just make the butter sugar filling in the bowl, because then it'll have just the residue of, it is warm enough today that there's flies, it's horrible. A little bit of residue will just add to the butter sugar flavour. All right, we've just spread the butter sugar vanilla mix out. Going to sprinkle it all with raspberry pieces and get it rolled up. My mic is flat, so I'm going to have to put it on charge, but I'll take some footage and then I'll add it in afterwards. I do have the second batch of scroll dough. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet because I think this is the last of the raspberries from last season. So I definitely need to make sure I get more this year to put in the freezer because we have loved having them. But I do have strawberries, so maybe I could grind some strawberries up into little pieces like this and we could do strawberry lemon as well. Alright, the rolls are proofed enough. I've got the oven, I've just turned it on, so they'll go in a slightly cool oven, which will give them the last little bit of a proof. But this tray is very puffy. That tray's not quite as puffy, but they're doable. So just egg washing, and then I'm going to put some sesame seeds on them because I really like sesame seeds. And then one of these trays can be lunch tomorrow with probably the pork and cheese and caramelized onion or whatever on them as a slider tray. And the other ones we probably have with dinner tonight. So I'm just doing this. Do you want to grab the sesame seeds off the shelf for me, please, babe? We ended up doing the second batch with crushed up strawberries, and I added some pistachio spread to the butter sugar mixture, just as something a little bit different. So they will be tasty, and we rolled them different ways just to, because we could. The dough was a little bit slack to be doing as like cinnamon scroll type roll. It wouldn't have held together properly. So doing it in the little twisty things was
I'm gonna make my chocolate pastry.
better, but I'm not very good at them. They will work, but they're not very consistent. So I'm going to get these in the oven. These only take about 25 minutes, and then they'll have time to cool before dinner tonight. The pork, one of the porks is already almost at temperature, so I need to check the other ones, and then once they're at temperature, which is about the 62 to 64 for medium rare pork, and once they're done, I will foil them to rest until we're ready to slice them. Other than that, we were going to make some ice cream, but Sonnet hasn't washed the things yet. We might do that tomorrow because I need to finish the boys' schoolwork, maths stuff, and I also still have to edit this week's video. So this might be the last of what I do for now, other than the scrolls. I'll show you them when they're ready. Pork's out. I'll show it to you when we're slicing it. Of course, Darryl just drove up, so the dogs are going nuts. So there's one here. This needs foiling. Can you grab some foil out for this one? And then there's the other two as well. So we've got all three roasts all resting now, ready to go. The slider rolls are out of the oven. The container's too hot up.
And I'm in chocolate pastry.
Yeah. Slider rolls out of the oven. Sonnet's made chocolate pastries. The raspberry twists and stuff won't go in just yet. They're not quite proofed enough. Gonna need another piece. So yeah. Stuff done for the moment. Alright, this is the first two trays out. I'm still figuring out with the oven, the rack at the top obviously browns because of the reflective heat from the top. So I did swap them, but I'm still figuring out the best amount of time required on each level to get them to be more even. I just mixed up some cream cheese icing with lemon curd. So there's a whole bunch of, I didn't really measure anything out. Bit of butter, bit of icing sugar, block of cream cheese, some lemon curd, chunk of lemon curd, bit of salt. Like, I winged it until it was the right texture, and I wanted this light, fluffy sort of a texture so that it's not too heavy. And then we get to have these lovely, they're really moist because of the cream cheese. So that's what they look like when they're iced, and then still warm, so it'll melt through it a little bit and keep it nice and soft. All right, pork. That Darryl really wanted me to cut into as second he got home, but you know. It's been resting for a while. Makes it a bit easier to cut nice and thin. And I didn't end up doing any potatoes or anything because Sonnet was going to help me, but she was too busy making chocolate pastries. So there's just slider rolls,
You
mayo
could have instant mashed potatoes.
with pork and slider rolls.
Yeah.
If you really want instant mashed potatoes, you can. But otherwise, there is plenty of pork.
Get some pork on the plate
On
and
your
then on
fork.
a fork.
And that's what it looks like.